Yeah, direct misfire, aiming up hits. Bend some spoon and Celica in the mix. Follow along, stay up to date. Comment, like, subscribe today.
Hello champs, and welcome once again to another Direct Misfire Missive. Joining me today, as always, is Selic.
Hey, hey.
As well as returning regular Hugh.
Howdy.
As we have a chat to the Kings of War reigning champion of the world, Jeff Traish. Forever shall he reign. So pull up a seat, grab a drink, and let's get into it. How you going, Jeff?
Good, thanks.
It's good. Now, before we get into today's main topic, we need to add another unit or two to our Cloud Giant army that we're creating for, let's say, the 3rd edition. Yeah? Maybe 4th. We'll see. I don't know. Okay, so we've got a couple of infantry types now. We've put the vote up to the people, which we haven't tallied just yet at the time of recording. So just to change things up a bit, I'm going to introduce a few large infantry, which will be the main bulk of the army. Now, you're going to have your standard warrior types and your air elementals probably because they're cloud giants and stuff. So I'm just going to forget them and focus more on the wacky things. Okay, so the first choice that you will have to vote on, I call them giant huffers. So these are giants with a larger lung capacity and generally more girth. They're slower than your normal cloud giants, but they have an increase in your big breath. So big breath is like Wind Blast 6. They have a lower nerve and lower melee as they're sooks because they kind of all they do is yell and they'd rather whine than fight. But as they're thick boys, they have a higher crushing strength. So that's the first unit, the giant huffers. The next one I call Crufflers. This is an odd spherical beast that kind of resembles Critters from the 1980s movie Critters, but they're quite large and they mostly float everywhere. So big bally things of gas and teeth.
Ooh.
They have similar sort of stats to the Goblin Maw Beast pack, but they're height 2 as they're larger. They're not nimble and they're a bit slower seeing as they float everywhere. But the key thing with this unit is that they can also be affected by your own big breath attacks, so your giants can blow them about.
Ooh.
Then we have the third choice, the giant piffers. So this is one of the few ranged units. No traditional weaponry, as they can either throw rocks at an 18-inch distance with piercing 1, or a regiment of piffers, because these are large infantry, a regiment of piffers can throw a friendly height 1 troop unit 12 inches. Or if you have a horde of piffers, you can throw a friendly height 1 regiment 12 inches. So if the thrown unit touches an enemy, so you could throw them at the enemy, the friendly takes half the unit's standard attack. So if you're throwing a regiment and they got 10 attacks normally, your friendly regiment that got thrown takes 5 piercing 1 hits. You don't do a nerve check on that one. But the enemy takes the full standard amount of attacks, but piercing 2, and they test nerve as normal. So they pick up your own units and throw them at the enemy.
Interesting.
And then the last one, we have Storm Coalers. So this is a badass unit of giants that command lightning, and they know they look cool when they do this, so they only shamble because they don't run, so they only walk, preferably in slow motion. And it's an average combat unit with an aura type range attack, so any unit that's not of the cloud giant army, friend or foe, so if you have allies, they'll be affected by this as well, that are within 6 inches of a Stormcaller unit, they take D3 plus 3 lightning bolt hits in the shooting phase. So that's even if they're in combat.
Ooh. You've really thought about it this time.
Oh, I like this. You've
actually
actually spent a
go to
little
town
bit.
with these guys.
You spent a little bit more than 10 seconds on it this time.
I think about 12 minutes. So we've got the giant huffers, the crufflers, they're the beasts, the giant piffers, and the storm callers. So one by one, I'll go Selic, Jeff, and Hugh. Have a think about it, make a case for which one we should add to the army and why. And at the end, I will make a choice, and then we'll get the listeners to make a second choice.
All right. Well, this one here is quite easy for me, and I think I'm going to steal Hugh's, but the Crufflers.
Okay.
I really like the Crufflers. So these guys here are the ones that are big balls of air. They slowly levitate, yeah?
Yeah, they just float about and bite things if they get in contact with them.
Well, I was wondering how you were going to make your Wind Blast actually stack up in your army, and I think that this is the sort of thing that I like. So it's actually given your Wind Blast, your terrible Wind Blast, giving it something a little extra. So I actually like those. So you said that they're looking a little bit like the Gremlins, yeah?
Like critters.
Critters, sorry. I think that's going to look pretty good. Good modelling opportunities and a little bit of shenanigans, and I love my shenanigans. What about you, Hugh?
Well, actually, you were right. You did steal mine. I did like the cruffers. I liked all of the options, though. They're all pretty rad in their own way.
You can still vote for it if you want.
Yeah, I will do. I think the Crufflers is my vote because I like the idea of them. How I'm imagining them is probably different to you because I can't recall exactly what critters look like.
Okay.
But I'm imagining them a bit like the moon from the Mighty Boosh. So like a big,
Okay.
a big spherical thing floating around still, but it's got like, human flat teeth, if you like, rather than sharp, nasty ones, because we are talking about a good army. And I like the idea of them having big flappy ears that catch the wind as they get blown around.
Are
I
you
think it'd
stoned?
be cool if they had some sort of aura. That like if they get blown over another unit, maybe they do damage on the way past or something like that.
Maybe I can create another unit that does that.
That could be cool. I like the idea of the Huffers blowing the Crufflers over other units for added effect. That's really cool.
And Jeff, what do you think? What are we adding to this army? What do you think we should add to this army?
It's a little bit boring because I'd pick the Crufflers as well.
All right.
Sounding like being blown around and the sound of a big ball with massive teeth or something getting blown into the enemy sounded pretty cool. I thought they'd be the most effective of the ones that you'd said. The lightning bolt sounded interesting as well because it could do it into combat, so that was good.
So I guess it's unanimous. So the giant piffers it is. No, the Crufflers have won it.
Crufflers.
So they're going to be added to the army. So you guys, the listeners, you'll get to vote on either the giant huffers, the piffers, or the stormcallers to also add to this cloud giant army. But that is enough of that rubbish. Silic, what are we here for again?
We are here for one man and one man only, the Jeff Traish, the Masters Australian winner of 2016 and 17, and then recently the Universal Battle 2 winner of the world of Call to Arms 2, Jeffrey Traish. Insert applause here. So, welcome unofficially and officially for the second time.
Second time. Sorry.
Do apologise for our technical error. We blame technology completely.
Definitely Craig's fault. It's Craig's fault.
Never
Definitely.
use the error. Yeah, it's always Craig's fault.
Definitely. So we do welcome Jeff Traish, Australia's number one. And recently, as I've mentioned, the Universal Battle 2 tournament that was held by Adam Padley, Call to Arms 2, you've recently won it. So we're going to get you here to talk through it. And we can probably start from game one as much as you can possibly remember. It was back in May now.
That's going to be the problem, isn't it?
Before we talk about that, can we talk about the format of the tournament a little bit by any chance? I'm interested to learn what this Universal Battle is. I mean, I do vaguely know what it is, but how that could work in a organized play kind of setting.
Yeah, well, you can run your normal tournament rules if you wish. The biggest difference with this one was you could change armies between rounds. And you could change points or agree to points for each round as well with your opponent. So you could run 1750 or 2250 or 2500, just depending on what you wanted to do. Most people sort of picked, if they had a tournament coming up in a week or two time, they'd ask, can we play 2,000 points? And the other person normally agrees. So.
Oh, yeah. Did you play a range of different points then over the course of the event? Yes, I did.
Mainly 2,000 and 2250, I think, were the two main ones I did.
So you didn't rack out any like madness 5,000 point games or anything like that?
No, never tried that.
Fair enough.
That'd be fun.
And just for our listeners, this was 38, so it was done over a couple of weeks. There was 38 people that participated, and these aren't your backyard Sams or your next door neighbours. These are like some pretty big names, some of our celebrities of the internet world there. Jesse Cornwell, Matt G, Matt Young's in there, Thomas Innes, Todd Serpico, never short of an opinion over there. And Patrick Allen, like these are just some of the names that obviously are in there, which are pretty big. Some of these are like US and the UK number ones or won major tournaments. So you've done quite well to end up on top there, Jeff.
Yeah, I was hoping to do well, obviously. I'd do as best that I could, but once I got to the top, I thought, I've got a chance here, and take them on one by one. I end up playing all people from the US and Canada. So didn't get to play any of the UK players, mainly because none of them got up to the top table.
Ooh, shots fired, Jeff.
Sounds like the English.
Lift your game, UK.
I've got a lot of regular opponents in the UK that I play on you. So some very good players there too.
So you play Universal Battle a fair bit, I gather.
Yeah, I play it more than on the table, mainly because such a distance for me to get a game. Closest person's 45 minutes to an hour away. So
Maybe I should get around this. Sounds
Maybe you should.
like fun.
yeah, it is good. At first, it's a little bit hard to get used to, but now a lot of ways it's actually better. Your line of sight and things like that are automatic, so there's very few mistakes in it. Once you get used to it, it's very good.
Interesting. I haven't played it since very early versions of the software, so it'd be interesting to try it again sometime. I only ever seem to get games in at tournaments, so every time I play a tournament, I haven't played in quite a while, and I'm super rusty. So that could be handy. Maybe we should crack out a game at some point, Benson or Sally, or whatever.
Yeah, for sure.
Give it a go.
Yeah, no, it's definitely worthwhile. I play Jan from down in Melbourne.
Oh, yeah.
Who was also in this tournament, by the way. Came 11th.
My man, yeah.
Yeah, myself, Jan, and Jeff Traish from up in Sydney as well. We were all in the tournament. We'd have practice games with each other, depending on what scenario it was, because you'd have 2 weeks between each round. So there was time to get a practice game in, try out different armies, and have a chat about it after each game and see what we thought and where we could improve.
2 weeks between each round, so it's quite like a league kind of situation. It's almost like playing a Blood Bowl league for a few months or something.
Yeah, it ran over nearly 3 months.
Cool. Okay, so how many rounds was it, mate?
5 rounds. I think we actually started with 40-something players, but then a couple of them dropped out after a number of rounds. They couldn't make the games, etc.
Yeah.
But there was no one up the top end that actually dropped out.
Yeah, as soon as you're up the top, mate, people start dropping off.
They start giving up.
Yeah.
So with 5 rounds, we'll probably start to go through some of the people now, just to have a look at time. We don't want people to have a 7-hour podcast here.
No.
So do you remember who you played first up?
Yes. First round was Kyle Poole from the US. He told me that he's won about 5 or 6 major GTs in America.
Trying to psych you out already.
Yeah, so that's great. That's the sort of person I want to play. I want to play the top players from over there and see how we stack up.
Yeah, great. Did you say the problem with those 5 or 6 GTs is they were just a heap of Americans, and so you would have eaten them for breakfast?
Ooh.
A couple of my mates, one of my mates, Ken James, he was saying, they're all a bunch of Muppets. Hey, they're not Muppets. They're bloody good players, and all really nice people as well.
It's not good enough.
No, they were tough games. They really
Calm
were.
down, you patriots.
I can throw shade. I'm on a podcast.
Yeah, no, very, very tough game. I remember towards the end, I had it in turn 6. And then in turn 7, he had the opportunity of getting it back to a draw. He had to shoot off one of my characters. I'm trying to think what it was. I was playing Forces of Nature.
Of course, this isn't about 2017 at this point, by the sounds of things. So.
No, it was back in May, and we have already done this interview, so he's thought he's had to just remember it all and then get rid of it all. So
yeah,
I do apologise.
I just forget the names of units, etc. I know what they are. Warden, the Wardens.
Yep.
Yeah, you had
Forest
to try
Warden?
and shoot him off with the Blizzard spell, I think it was, and he didn't succeed. It was a bit of a long shot. They're toughness 5 and decent nerve, and that Blizzard can be great or it can be very ordinary. So, yeah, tough game, and one of the closest ones during the tournament, actually.
And do you jump on Discord with these blokes while you...
I was normally using Skype for most of the games.
Oh, okay, as opposed to just typing, like you're actually chatting away. And
I'm not great at typing, so.
Cool.
So what was Kyle running?
Kingdoms of Men. It was a very well thought out list for the scenario. Not that I can remember what scenario we were doing now.
Yep.
So I remember it was he had a
Scenario number 2.
well, he had a lot of flying characters, which was great for. I think it was the one where you capture the points. You have 3 points on the opposite side of the table. Once you score them at the end of your turn, they then disappear.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that. I find that one heavily favours whoever goes first in some matchups.
Yeah, can do it.
To run in there and grab the token.
Yeah, I find a lot of people go for it too early. After a lot of practice games, my first thought was, rush up, grab it, take it out.
Right.
But I've found with practice that letting the person come up and get it and then killing them, there's plenty of time to go and get those tokens if you've got the right build, and you destroy half their army because they're giving you the charge by going up and collecting the token early.
Come to think of it, that's exactly what Mike Crossman did to me last time we played that. I'm going to write this down.
Slow down, Jeff. I'm writing this down as well. Can you, so hypothetically, would it be turn 2 or 3 that you would start to go towards the tokens?
I would, if the opportunity's there to do it without being countercharged or putting myself in a bad position, I'll do it as early as possible. But a lot of people do it just to the point of getting that point, but will sacrifice their unit, where I don't think it's necessary. Game.
Okay.
That makes sense, I guess.
Most of it's one round, like 4 or 5, 5th turn, probably.
And did you play nature throughout the whole event, Jeff, or did you change armies?
No, I chopped and changed every game.
All right, so let's jump into number 2 then. So you've just dismissed Kyle Poole, one of the better players over in the US there as well. And we jump into round 2.
Yep.
Who did you come up against?
Alex Kuss, I think his name.
Yep.
And he was from Canada. The first round I played nature. I'm not sure whether I said that. This second round I ended up using abyssals, and he was using ratkin. So I remember I was quite, I won't say scared, but apprehensive about coming up against ratkin. They're very good for scenario play.
Well said, Jeff.
I said they're very, very good for scenario play, the ratkin.
Yeah, I agree. I was just agreeing with you, and then you said it again. That's even better.
Reaffirm.
Yeah, I remember he was using the cavalry, and I hadn't come up against them, the new units that they had.
Ooh.
The tunnel runners.
Is that what
the large
called?
cav?
Yeah.
Defense 5 and hit pretty hard.
Yeah, they were quite scary, but they died very quickly, so that was good.
Forget I heard that.
Yeah.
So during this battle with Alex, obviously you ended up on top, but what did you find was his biggest threat? So obviously the unit strength is always going to be a massive asset for the Ratkin. What did you find was difficult to come in if you're taking off his cavalry there pretty easily?
Right. Well, he had the storm vermin, and the other ones with ensnare.
So shock troops and blight we're talking about?
Yep. So all the major ones that are in there. The blight are always tough, but I had a similar unit. I had larvae in my list, which have ensnare. They can't fight. They're like 25 attacks hit on 6s, but they're defense 4 and ensnared. And I would use them as tar pits, and then have the tortured souls and that come in and hit them in the flanks. So his ensnare didn't really do him much good.
Would you say the larvae are an understated unit?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, most people write them off. They don't. Yeah, they'll say that, you'd use one, maybe a horde or a legion of them, but I normally run 3 hordes in the list.
3 hordes.
Yep.
So cheap. 130 for a fearless 22 nerve horde with ensnare.
Yep.
That's pretty legit, yeah.
Yeah,
It's really easy to underrate. Like, until you see it on the table a number of times, it's hard to fully grasp how effective that -1 to hit is.
Yeah, especially on a unit that even if it dies, you don't really care. It's what you're putting it in there for, knowing that it is a tar pit. It's not going to kill something, and you've just got to have the big hitting units to come around the flanks. And they also provide cover for the tortured souls, which is pretty important.
That's one thing that I must say in all of your armies, and I know that we'll discuss it later, but all of your armies, every single unit has its purpose and its role, where it's not just like this one here looks great, like a Matt Selleck army, but every single one of your units, it has a role, it has a purpose, and you definitely deploy it really, really well. And I think that if we have a look at some of the units that we talked through very shortly, it's very much the same. So how did you end up dismissing the Canadian here?
That was his army fell to bits. It really did. It was pretty much, I think that was a 25, like the maximum score.
Oh.
By about turn 5, there was nothing left of his army.
He must have come back well, because if you've 25'd him, he's come back and finished 19th overall, so just below halfway.
Yep.
Actually, exactly halfway. So yeah, he must have come back all right.
Yeah. No, he he was a decent player. I can't really remember. I don't remember ever having brilliant dice or anything like that through any of the games. Most of my dice were average, which I'm happy with. I think he just got caught out by the list build, and yeah, I normally always play for scenario. So
even sensible, handsome Canadians with wise army choices are going to struggle up against the Traishter with average dice.
well said.
All right, so round 2's done. We've milked the maple tree, and now we're on to number 3. Who was your third opponent, mate?
Right. Well, by the start of round 3, I was on table 1, so that 25 pushed me up to the top table. So I knew I was going to get all the top players then.
Early lead.
I was happy at that stage just to have been in the lead at some point during the tournament. I remember that as well. So at least I can say I got to the top of it. And this was a guy by the name of Chris Fisher.
Yep.
Again from the US. And I saw just after that tournament, our tournament had finished, that he won a big GT over there as well, probably a week or two afterwards. So.
Yeah, sure did.
And that was with his Basilia. Very powerful list. Had those formations, the one with the angels. Yep. And the other one with the cavalry as well, I think. Is the one with the cavalry?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
The Holy Lancers are the knight formation.
Yep.
It gives them elite. So that's 2 Paladin Knight regiments and Gnaeus Celestis.
Yes.
That's the knights on foot. Are they the knights on foot?
No, they're cavalry.
They're cavalry. Right.
The foot ones, he had the penitence mob, I believe.
Crikey. So he had all these flying angels and heaps of cavalry as well. Quite a very high impact kind of shock troop force.
Had the Elohoy, had the Phoenix as well.
Mate, are you sure you were running the same point limit?
Yeah. Yeah, one of the Besses, they're really good. The single character that runs around.
Yep, the little 4 attacker. Yep. Was he mounted or?
Yeah, he was mounted.
Yeah.
Yeah, it wouldn't go without a mounted. The speed 10 and
110 points.
Yeah, very good. And he had a Panther Chariot Horde.
A horde?
Sisterhood Panther Chariots.
Yeah, they were. It might have been a regiment. I'm not sure. They were very good.
So what were you playing against the Basileans?
Went back to nature for the third game. Very close. I remember at the end of turn 6, I went second. He had a combat that he'd won with the Elohoy, and he needed an overrun of 3 inches, I believe, to get his unit into the zone. I think we were playing Dominate, and he only rolled a 1, so he didn't get in. So he was losing on turn 6. But then we did roll up at turn 7. He got it back to a draw in his turn, and then I had 2 combats. Either one, if I won either of them, I would win the game. One was had Agni, the big fire monster, go into the rear of the chariots, and he did 27 wounds, I think, or something like that.
Holy shit.
But I double won it.
Oh
no.
Yeah, that was
Bloody dice.
That was fun. And then I had the Phoenix, which I double charged as well, front and flank. And I think I needed a 5 twice, but I got it. So that got me the win in turn 7. So, another tough game. Not an easy opponent. As I said, they're all really nice people. So.
And for those who haven't seen Agni Banu, who's the greater fire elemental in Forces of Nature, he's melee 4, defense 5, 9 attacks, but he's crushing strength 4, piercing 4 on his breath attack 12, as well as vicious.
Yeah, it's his breath attack that does the job.
What's his name? Agnes or something?
Agni Banu.
Great bloke.
Okay.
260 point fire elemental.
Yeah, I thought he wasn't worth it when I first looked at it, but after using him a few times, I found him extremely good.
Cool. So he sort of has a similar role to like a flying dragon-y kind of affair. Is that what he's about?
He's only speed 6 though, and he doesn't fly.
Yeah, he doesn't shamble either like the other.
That's a lot of points for a non-flying monster, so he must hit pretty hard.
Well, as I said, it's the damage he does with the breath attack. So you've got an 18-inch threat with him. That alone, he's pumping out normally 6 wounds a turn because it's vicious when he shoots as well. So he's always wounding on 2s and re-rolling 1s. So you're normally getting 5 or 6 wounds. But I'd tag team him with the other guy with Alchemist Curse. Nearly always guarantee 3 or 4 wounds off that one as well. So I had that, and then I had a trick with the flying air elemental, So I'd come in, shoot with Agni, shoot with the Alchemist Curse, bring the Flying Air Elemental within charge range, shoot with that with the Lightning Bolt, and then surge him into the flank or rear or whatever. And I'd kill dragons, etc. in one go with that combo.
You're a monster.
It was a monster. Yeah, wow. It's a very good combination, and there's not a lot you can do about it. Well, there is. Stay away and
that's it. Throw rubbish at him.
So pretty much it was that sort of trick that got Chris Fisher out of the way?
Well, as I said, he had a really good, strong list too, so it was a really big battle.
Yeah, how did you deal with the angels? Because those things, they're always everywhere I don't want them to be. They're always on my wings because they just pop up and then they obviously pivot that 90 degrees and I just can't ever seem to stop them. And when I do, they just sort of get out of the way and fly away anyway. So how did you sort of deal with them?
I believe at the end of the game, both units were still alive.
Of course they were.
But with the less unit strength that they're worth, that brings them down a little bit for scenario play.
Yeah, obviously the nimble neg one.
Yeah. So I think I killed the majority of the rest of his army, but they were still running around. I remember I got the little character, the Yeah, I got him with the surging air elemental because he came up the back of my army and I turned around and got him. At the end of the day, you're looking at the scenario and what points you can get in. I usually sit there, work out how much unit strength the person's got or the number of scoring units they've got, figure out how many I have to delete to get myself in a winning position. Often I know I've won the game by turn 4 against someone.
Really?
Yep.
So all of your moves are in the first, effectively, or most of your players are in that first 4 to get dominance.
Yeah, just I'll have a plan of what I need to do to win the scenario, and then I'll do it, especially the small elite armies, which is what the majority of people run. You might only have, 6 or 7 scoring units. A lot of them run, lists with 9 or 10, and then a few of them are characters. If it's one where we need to score or unit strength or whatever, I'll target the easiest parts of their army, destroy them. I'll often leave the bigger, harder ones to kill. Let them go and kill something or try and delay them. That's usually the best way of doing it, delay them, and have so much unit strength or scoring units left that they've got no chance of beating me. They just can't get around to doing it.
It sounds like my strategy, only more effective.
Yeah, normally by turn 4, I'm like, well, I don't have much left, so...
Yeah, well, most people just have kill in their head, and that's it. Just go out and kill the other person's army, which is effective if you do kill their army, obviously.
Yeah, I don't do that either.
Yeah, look, I think we spoke about CanCon last time, how I was 3rd or 4th lowest attrition.
Yeah, you sure were.
The whole tournament.
To the point, and I know that I'm not going to exaggerate this too much, but I remember having a look at the end of day 1, and it's a big 2-day tournament. I thought that there was a typo. You were down at least, you were up at the top of the list, but you were only half of everyone that was around you. And I thought that they'd forgotten to put your kill points in.
Yeah, it looked like that, didn't it?
It did. And I remember having a chat to Benson and Spoon and Poppy Hugh over a couple of beers as well and just going, surely that's not right.
We decided you'd probably taken in just an army with a series of bricks that you'd painted dwarves on.
That wasn't intentional either, I can tell you. I'd come up against some really strong lists in CanCon. A lot of them killed a lot more of my army than I killed of theirs. It's just that I was still able to win the scenario.
Yeah, so CanCon's Australia's largest tournament. I think we had up over 50 players last year. And the year before that, I think it was 63. And I think you won that one, didn't you, Traishy?
Yeah, I second this year, first last year, second the year before. And then the first one, I think I got 4th or 5th.
Oh, terrible.
Yeah, that was the first one in it.
We're 3 games in. Yep. And so by now, we're probably, I don't know how many, 6, 7 weeks. And they give you the 4th round. Who was the fourth victim?
Patrick Zorro Allen, is it?
Yep, yeah, Patrick Allen.
Yep, and he was the US Master, not last year, but the year before. So he was one of the ones that I really wanted to have a chance of playing against because he'd been the top in America. So that was a good opportunity to play the real top pins, so to speak. I'd seen him in the chat beforehand. Each round, he'd let his opponent pick which army he would use. He's very similar to me. He'll use all sorts of armies. It doesn't really bother him. And he said the same to me once we started talking. And I said, look, I'd rather you just use what you want to use. And he said, oh, no. He said, at least give me 2 armies and I'll pick one of those. I said, okay, well, I'll do that. I said, but I'll tell you what I'm using so that there's no advantage to me. Because I didn't want to play him and then feel like it wasn't really a win if I did get to beat him.
Yep.
Yeah, I gave him the choice of Nature or League of Rortia, which were 2 of my favourites. I ended up using Neretica with Night Stalker allies. Originally, I told him that I'll probably use Night Stalkers, and then a couple of days before I said, oh, look, I'm going to use Neretica with the Night Stalker allies instead. Got an idea in my head and, went with that. So
very noble of you.
Yeah, well, it's... as I said, you don't want to go to this level and then feel like you only won because you got to, give them a certain army and then you could to beat that army. It'd be quite easy to do.
Yeah, you don't get the opportunity to play the top US brass every day, so you want to make a game of it. In fact, actually, we've never actually played, you and I, Jeff, but if we do at some point, I'll actually allow you to use whatever army you brought. If you like.
Well, how about this? You do that, and then I'll tell you what I'm using when we get.
Okay, perfect.
Just to make it fair.
This is beautiful.
Yeah.
Such friendship.
Yeah, so he ended up with a very interesting list. I do remember most of it. He had a couple of regiments of the fighting cav.
Which army?
This is Nature he picked.
The Bray Hunters?
Yes.
Bray Striders.
Bray Striders.
Yeah,
he had a couple of them, and he had a couple of Bray Hunters as well.
Yeah.
He had the flying shooting unit, the Sylph Talon Riders.
Mm-hmm.
He had a tree man. He put Elite on him, and he had the Blizzard, I believe, on that one. That was a good combo, actually.
A lot of people take Blizzard. Do you think it's overpowered?
I don't know that it's overpowered, but it scares the bejesus out of you. Because if you've got vulnerable characters, one good hit, and so you spend half your time hiding things. It's like a fly going down the flank. As soon as it gets there, even if it mightn't be able to kill something, you're still turning half your army, and the psychological effect it has on you and your game is the winning formula, really.
Some of the threat is more effective than the actual effect on the table sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. So it has that sort of effect because it can be, no hits, or it could be 10 or 12 hits. And a lot of people put piercing on their characters as well that use it. Mm-hmm. Came up against one the other day with the elves because they get elite, and he just continually rolled ones and then he re-roll and get a 4. So that was a bit nightmarish.
I think I've got that. Take Blizzard.
It was a very shooty list, but I took mainly Thule as the core of my Nereticans. They are only defense 3, but they're also stealthy, so that had quite an impact. I think for my allies, I had the Phantoms, a regiment of Phantoms, and I had the Void Lord give me a big flyer because the Nereticans don't have any of the flyers in their list.
So how many Thule did you have? Because they're only 140 for a regiment.
Yeah, I had
with 20 attacks on them.
About 6 regiments, I think.
And they're both ensnare and stealthy, so it takes a bit to take one regiment off, even though they are defense 3. You have to hit the things first.
Yeah. They're great against crushing strength armies. And even if you don't have crushing strength, or often I don't even take Bane Chant, against a defense 5 unit, they're still whacking out 4 to 5 wounds every round. And if you get them in the flank, they're still pushing out the damage. And because they are cheaper, you're getting more units, which means you can outmaneuver your opponent.
And do you put any artifacts on them? Or just keep them naked?
Just whatever. If I do put any, it's normally one to stop the wavering on them. That's their biggest problem.
Okay, yep.
Because the nerve's not very great. So
14, 16. It's not terrible though for 140.
No, it's not terrible, but I find that's the biggest problem I have with them is them wavering. You're better off just putting a banner or something like that and giving the extra nerve to 3 or 4 of them than putting in items. Yeah, I find them very effective, and that one ended up a 25 as well, I think.
No, it sounds like you had a pretty good matchup in the end against Pat
Yes.
Alan. Yeah.
Yeah, and he said, "Oh, first I thought you were taking Night Stalker," and I said, "Well, how would that help you be going to the Redicans? Because Night Stalkers, you knew they all had stealth, and you've taken a shooting army, so
You're actually kind of doing him a
favour."
favor, yeah.
Yeah, well, not that I knew he was taking all
Yeah.
shooting either, so I had no idea what he was taking. But with if you know the person's taking a stealth army, you wouldn't be going big on the shooting, I wouldn't believe, anyway. But
That's right. I'm sure that Pat had some sort of thought there.
Yeah.
So by the end of the 4th round, so we're 1 round to go, another 2 weeks wait.
Yep.
We go into the 5th and final round. Who were you up against? What did you take? What did they take? Tell us everything.
Matt Schaefer,
Mm-hmm.
he took Kingdoms of Men. He'd use them every single round, and he made it quite clear that he was going to use them through the tournament, because he said, the sky will probably fall in if he wins it with Kingdoms of Men. And I had seen him play one game before he played Jeff Traish, probably in round 2 or something.
Oh, so you can participate in the games as well, can you?
Yeah, you can go in and watch them.
Observe.
Yeah. So when either Jan or Jeff were playing, if I had the time, I'd pop in and have a watch of a bit of their games, and they'd do the same, vice versa. Watch some of mine at the time. So yeah, just sit on the sideline, see what happens. It was a good list. The Kingdoms of Men list now, especially with that captain, is very good. The +2 rallying for him,
Yeah.
And the shenanigans that he can pull.
yeah, really pushes it up. I know in that first game, I remember Kyle used it very effectively, threw all his cavalry from one side to another side and completely dominated one flank. So he come down, I couldn't stop it.
Interesting.
Just crushed the rest of his army. So. Yeah, so Matt had the usual thing, the flyers, the chariots are very popular with them as well, because they're speed 9, do a bit of shooting, take up a lot of real estate.
Yep.
And that was the one game where my dice abandoned me. I end up rolling 3 or 4 double ones, I think.
Ooh.
So
And so how well did you do in that last game? Even with the Mudgy dice?
yeah, I still won reasonably convincingly. I think 22, but I would have been no disrespect to him, but I would have cleaned him up.
Yeah, so Matt ended up finishing 4th overall.
Yep.
And that was, I'm pretty sure, by 1/10, less than 1/10, he ended up coming 2nd, so he nearly podiumed. So it was a pretty good effort there by Matt.
Yeah.
So anything else you can sort of tell us about that game there?
I just remember the dice. I can't even remember where I threw them, but I remember thinking, why is it happening on this game of all games? It's my opportunity to win the tournament, and you're starting to pull all the double ones out. But yeah, I was still able to get into a position and get the scenario. And I think I do remember near the end, he realised, I knew in that game by turn 5 that I'd won it. He didn't. Till turn 6, he went, and right, he's just realised what's gone on here. I'd already shut him down. There was no way he could get back to get one of the
Couldn't get it
objectives,
back.
whatever it was. But yeah, I had it sewn up on 5. So, and we were pretty even on points. We both killed about the same of each other's army. Yeah, just shut him out of the scenario.
No, that's it. So with the downfall of Matt Schaefer there, it takes you to the very, very top of the Call to Arms 2, the champion of the world at this stage that we're calling it. So a massive
Nice
congratulations. Sorry, what was that?
Oh, I was just going to say it was no official world championship or
Oh,
anything.
It is
we'll
now.
make sure.
We've deemed it.
We've called it. Doesn't even play a UK person, and we'll call it. So that's fine.
Well,
Wait
I
with
played
it.
lots of UK people, and yeah, I lost my first game to one of them the other day. Kill scenario,
Oh, there's your problem.
and he
You're
took
not
it
playing
off
to the objective.
shooting list. He knew what I was using for a tournament, and he brought it out. He did it the game before as well. He brought it out. He says, I want to see how you go up against this, because he knew it had hurt my army, and I still beat him on scenario.
Take that.
Yeah, it was funny. I had 2 hordes of depth horrors and 3 of the little swarms left, and he still had probably 70-80% of his army left. But think it was on turn 5. He says, "Oh, I'm going to have to go." He said, "I think we've answered the question anyway, and my army's destroyed yours." I said, "Yes, you've destroyed it." I said, "But you're going to lose the game, you know that." He said, "What are you talking about? I'm not going to lose the game." I said, "Yeah, you will." He said, "Oh, but what if I go over and destroy it?" So you've got your archers can't even get within range to shoot me on turn 6. So you've got one guy with a blizzard who's going to take out a -18 unit in one go. Good luck with that. I said, "But, you know, if you want to, we'll finish it off." So we did the next day, and he conceded defeat. I had nothing left of my army, but still won. It was very funny. I had the 2 depth horrors over on one flank, both touching each other, and they were both covering the 3 swarm troops, and every unit had a token on. And he only had 4 units left in his army. So it was a very elite army. So that was, again, it was another one of those ones where I worked out what I needed to kill and what I needed to win the game. So I don't care sacrificing things, that's fine.
Yeah.
So, Traish, obviously 38 people, probably 40 plus at the start. You've played a few, you've finished first, you've conquered the world. Out of that whole list, was there anyone that you wished you had played?
Yes, I would have liked to play Tom Ennis.
Tom Ennis, yeah.
Yep. Jesse, I would have liked to play him.
Jesse Cornwell, yeah.
Yep. Matt Young was another one. Because I've watched a few of the videos, the YouTube ones. So.
Mastercrafted.
Yeah. Well, none of the... Well, Jesse was on. He was the only one from that was on. So, yeah, I would have liked to have played those guys. So.
Have you played them since?
No.
Not yet.
Well, I guess if you're listening out there, Traish is officially calling you out. So you'd better toughen up and, respond to that via PM or something, I guess.
Yeah, no, I'd love to play all of them. I can get the opportunity. I've got to get a game with Adam Cadley as well. I told him after the tournament, because he said, he was really regretting that he didn't get to watch any of my game. And I said, well, how about we have a game, then you can see how I play. It'll be the best way, because I think he's ranked number 1 in the UK, or he was at the time. That'd be a good matchup.
No, they've got a very competitive circuit over there. So if you can be the top of the tree over there, you're doing a great job. So, Traish, I've just had a look at...
For an Englishman.
For an Englishman.
For an Englishman.
Yeah, that's it. So we've got the Ashes coming up as well. So we'll see how we all deal with that. World Cup first. But if we have a look at Traish U over the last, what will it be, 4 years. So if we go back to Kings of Win, which was one of your first tournaments over that period that you came third in, you have played Dwarfs, Nature, Night Stalkers, Trident Realms, Empire of Dust, Forces of the Abyss, League of Rordia, Ogres, Orcs. You've played absolutely everything. What's your favourite and why? So I know that you've sort of mentioned and alluded to it earlier that Natures and League of Rordia are your favourite. Can you just talk us through which is your favourite and why?
It'd be hard. I have favourite units in certain armies. I would say that. My top 3 armies at the moment, and that's about the best I could narrow it down to, would be...
I'll take it.
Night Stalkers, Nature, and League of Rordia. They'd be my 3 favourite armies. And then each one has a certain aspect that draws me to them. So with Nature, I love all the monsters. I think they're great monsters. Their infantry is very poor, but you look at another list where the infantry is fantastic in Eretica. I love the Thule. As I said, they're my favourite unit in that. But they lack on the side of flyers, etc. And then Night Stalkers, the Dread Fiends, probably one of my favourites. 120 points. I don't think you can go past him. One of the best value large cavalry characters in the game. It's only 120 points and 14, 17 nerve and speed 8. And he's brilliant.
Very attractive.
Yeah, and if you
14, 17 on 120 points.
Yeah. And stealthy.
Strength, crushing strength 2.
And vicious.
Crikey.
Somebody have a look at that.
But again, you'll go there, but then they'll have other works, and that's how they built it, which is fantastic.
Well, you probably can't really nerf your playstyle, Jeff, because you'll just pick up one of your other 16 armies and do just as well anyway.
And just continue.
Yeah, it doesn't matter which army you use. It really doesn't. Favourites, because I like using them, and often, especially if I'm travelling, I'll go for the smaller build, ones that don't have as many models.
Do you like that about Kings of War in general, that it feels like quite a balanced game compared with others you've played?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's what I love about it more than anything, because obviously dice play part of the game. We know that, but it really does come down to more how you. And it is. There's nothing. You might get a little bit of paper, scissors, rock with some armies, but each army can have 100 different. So even that doesn't really come into play.
So, Jeff, I've just had a very abusive text message just come through. It's obviously somebody that's a little bit rowdy tonight, but it's from League of Rordia, actually, that you're saying is your go-to date. And apparently you haven't used League of Rordia since 2016 in a tournament. So what is the go there, mate? You can't be going around calling it your favourite army and never fucking using it.
I used it last week.
In a tournament?
No, not in the tournament.
Mate, it doesn't matter. If you're not taking it to the restaurant, mate, you can't just cook at dinner at home and say it's your woman.
Honestly, it's the number of models I've got to pull out for that one.
So when are we gonna see it, mate? League of Rordia, back in the tournament scene. You used it once, you came first. There was 10 people at that tournament. That isn't even a real tournament. What is going on there? It's only the Masters.
Yeah, that was the Masters. That's right. Yeah. No. I'll pull it out again. As I said, I was nearly going to this weekend coming. I've got a tournament in Canberra I'm going down to, and I've been doing practice games for the last couple of weeks, and I'm up to my 4th different army in practice at the moment. So yeah, League was one of the ones, and I had all it takes is one idea about one thing, and then that's it. I'm gone off on a different tangent, and I'm running with that, and then chopping and changing, and yeah. So I'm probably back to nature on this one.
So
this weekend.
When are we going to see it? Is it going to be 2019 that we'll see League of Rordia reintroduced into your...
I'll get that for a tournament.
Are we going to hold you to that, Traish?
Yeah, you can hold me to it.
All right. I'm going to write it down on my pad.
Yeah.
That's also got a lot of tactics that I've learnt off you, so that's good.
Hopefully there's enough tournaments for me to get it in. I'm not stuck to one list for the Masters or something like that.
No, get
Not
it,
that
mate.
really
Get
mad.
it.
I could use that in the Masters as well.
Well, you did last time
But
when I
just
paid
don't
for you.
I don't like being stuck to one thing too much. I like to chop and change.
Very, very true. So I know that you've obviously played a lot of armies, and I know it's a little bit different from us. So over here we review a lot of armies, and we obviously play against a lot of armies to have a look at good combinations. Using them successfully, could you give us maybe one, maybe two of your best combinations that you've used, and how did you use them, just briefly?
Right. Well, I think I did cover a couple of the ones, and that was the one with the nature and the air elementals. That's very effective. That's the shooting and then the surging in. It's something that's been used in a lot of other lists, but this is a little bit more effective. As I said, it can kill a dragon in one go, so it's quite effective little combination. The one with the abyssals with larvae just marching up the board and copying whatever you throw at us, and then being able to position your other units so that wherever they hit, they get flanked. That's very effective. Mm-hmm. League of Rordia, let me think. What's the main ones in
I'll
there?
text this as well.
I like using the halflings in that. Very hard to shoot off the table. Same thing, high nerve units can move up the board, run your dukes on ancient Arales.
Mm-hmm.
Them coming down, they're not as strong as a dragon, but they'll give that threat.
They still fly around and punch things.
Yeah, that's right. They'll give the threat, and the main thing is just anchoring people down on units that they think that they can go through, but they can't.
Mm.
And if they commit too much to go through them, then you've just got to be in a position that they're going to pay a high price for it. That's not really a set tactic.
Well, Traish, you're coming up here in Melbourne in the near future, at the time of recording at least, is Convict, which is a fun little tournament.
Yes.
One of our larger ones in Melbourne, actually, with 7 games at various different points levels and stuff. So I think with that in the near future at the time of recording, possibly it's right around the corner, or possibly it's just happened, depending on when this is released. But what the people really want to know is, what are your favourite ratkin tactics?
That's one army that I've never played with. I sold my, I didn't sell it, I gave it away.
Rightfully so.
Gave it to a friend when I went to War Machine.
Crikey. I had my pad out and everything.
Yeah, I only play the armies that I can actually field.
I see.
Which is like 12 armies. But
Well, I use proxies for things. Like a lot of the War Machine stuff I've just rebased and can do a lot of different ones with them because I had a lot of monsters and ogre type units and, bog trog ambushes, which are just like fishmen and, lots of different things from there that I've used because I never bothered selling the stuff. So just rebased it and very good for all the nature monsters. And then I do have a lot of other armies. You get the human army, and that covers you in a way for Basilia, for League of Rordia, for Kingdoms of Men. So you can run 3 different ones, just a little bit of change here or there with that. So it's not that hard. I always played Undead, and I had the old Tomb Kings, so that had those ones covered. Orcs, I think I won. Same with the Abyssals. I won a army box of them.
Right.
That's not a problem I ever had.
Winning too much?
No, winning armies. That's just
Right.
My problem is not being able to put them together and paint them on.
Yeah, I also have that problem. So, yeah, I don't actually have any good things on this page, but that's all right. So, Tracy, obviously we've just paused your game of Total War Warhammer. So I only have two more questions here.
Yep.
So the first one is, when you are building a fresh army, so hypothetically think you're starting your 13th or 14th army, how are you going to start building, and what is the first thing that goes into your mind, and then the second and third, so on?
Right. Well, what normally happens is I think of a unit. So I might be running, say, at the League of Rordia, and I'm looking at a certain unit, and then I think, okay, the ones in Abyssals, I'll compare them. I think, geez, that's really good. And if it catches my attention, I'll go to that, and then I'll build around that unit. So that's how I build an army. I think about what weaknesses and strengths. I always look at what will I do against flyers, what will I do against shooting, and what will I do against armies. They're the 3 major things that I look at.
So you tend to take all comers armies, you'd say, in any given faction?
Yes, yeah. I want a list that can take on everything, no matter what it is, and at least give me a chance in it. I don't want to have a scissor to rock type list. So that's what happens when you take all melee or all shooting. You will get in those positions where you'll slaughter people, and then you'll come up.
So preferably the kind of list where, if you were to play, say, I don't know, the Master of the US, and you were to roll 4 double ones, you would still comfortably win. That's the kind of list you prefer. That's because that's the kind of list I'd prefer to.
Well, I remember I lost to Clint Richards, who's a fantastic player.
He is.
Held the number 1 for a long time here in Australia. And I was playing him in a tournament up in Newcastle. I made a mistake early on, and he made me pay for it. And I slowly ground my way back into the game. And then on turn 5, 6, I rolled a double 1, which was enough to get him the win. He got 4-3 on the scenario. So you can't afford those sort of things when you're playing someone of the same sort of caliber. So someone who's very good.
Like a fellow Australian. I'm with you. I see.
That's right.
That was the moral of that tale.
No, jokes aside, Clint Richards, absolutely amazing. I think he's played 11 tournaments already this year, and he's sitting very close.
Doesn't like his family.
Second. No, he doesn't like his family. But best in race for Night Stalkers over here, Trident Realms, Undead. Naturally, he's played the most amount of armies as well. So, Jeff, if you're naturally matching up against him, then you've got a pretty good opponent to hone your skills to take out some of the world. But that leads into my next question before we get sidetracked, is last question here. What are your tips for Hugh and myself and the rest of the world? We've got one Russian listener. I'm not sure if you can speak Russian, so we'll probably just go in English. But what tips would you give us on how to win? So what should we be thinking through the first, second, all the way through to the potential 7th turn on how to win?
Right. Well, scenario has to be the number 1 thing. You got to look at what the scenario is. Look at the list build that they've got and the list build that you've got. You should actually be building your list before you get into the game with that in mind, and have a look at each of the scenarios and make sure that you've got a list that can be competitive in those scenarios. Because there are certain ones, if you build, you win. It's like having invade, and you've got all shooty list that's sitting back shooting. I've played people with those armies had next to nothing left, but you still win because they're not moving off the back of the table.
Yeah, that's actually a good piece of advice. In fact, with Convic around the corner at the time of recording, I think this is really good advice because each different point limit, that's a scaling one where you start with 1495 and you play 1995 for 2 games, and then you play 2250 for, I think it's 3 games. Because you have to submit lists ahead of time for each of those 3 point values, but you know the 2 scenarios that they'll be playing, or 3 in the case of the larger one. So you could build an army specifically designed to take on those scenarios. Sounds like that's a bit like what you did, Traish, in that internal battles.
Oh, definitely. When I made my list, I would look at the scenario and I would definitely look at how my list would handle that for sure.
Good to know.
Yeah, that to me, that's the number one.
Okay, so scenarios, we've got that. Make the list, making sure you're thinking about the scenarios. What about scenarios done? You built your list. What's next?
As I said, look at what your options are against flyers. That'd be my number one. If you come up against a list that's got dragons running down your flanks and that, what are you going to do? If you don't have an answer, go back.
That's interesting.
Because you will come up against that sort of thing quite often.
Write that down, Hugh.
Yep, got that.
Next one is the shooting. What if they're going to shoot you off the table? Especially the war machines. They're so, 1 minute they're hopeless, next minute they'll win the game, and I really dislike that or coming up against that. So I have to have an answer for that. What am I going to do if I come up against that sort of list? So, yeah, there's a lot to think about before you go into each one. And then what models have you got? You can't always take everything.
Fair enough. That's it.
That's my main criteria.
Online. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's Spencer's main, and mine too.
Yeah, well, we're all in the same boat. I've got obviously quite a big range to choose from. But yeah, that's.
But it has to be painted.
Yeah, all my stuff's painted. I used to pay my kids pocket money to paint stuff. They're all grown up now. It cost me too.
Little sweatshop.
Any tips on terrain management during the deployment phase?
I think Swordmaster.
Yep.
He's very good at looking at deployment and the terrain. I'd say he's probably better at that than I am. He sets all his army up with a purpose. I do to a certain extent, but I find I'm just better in the in-game mechanics once it gets started, seeing what's happening. And I played a lot of chess, so I can think 2 or 3 turns ahead and where something needs to be. So that, I think, is my best asset. But, yeah, the obvious things, what ones have got Pathfinder, what's going to block it up, where the objectives are, placing your objectives, if you've got Pathfinder or don't have Pathfinder.
Do you find Pathfinder to be a particularly important rule in Kings of War? Because I feel like it is quite important.
It is, but you can get away without having it. I love it when I have got it. So when I'm using my nature list, I love the fact that I can just go tearing through anything I like, and then I get to a table that's got hardly any woods, and I go, damn.
Yeah, definitely seems like one of the better army-wide special rules, though.
Yeah, no, it's certainly frees your movement up, whereas some of the other rules are better for the actual combat, like Vicious or Elite or something like that. For actual movement of an army, the Pathfinders that lets you really move your army where you need to without any hindrance.
Would you say that Swordmaster is probably the better of the deployers that you've ever come up against?
Well, he is when he talks about a battle report. And and I say that because it is easier, obviously, to look at something after you've done it and then say, well, I should have done it, or I did this for that. But he does. I played him quite often. We haven't played for a few months, but we were playing every week there for a while. Yeah, he would set up quite well, and he'd really look at the terrain and how he was doing it. And yeah, he was one of the better ones that I've seen for sure. And I don't rate myself as great for deployment. I tend to whack things down the way I like the look of them, and I won't say I just put them anywhere, because I might have certain things. If I've got Alchemist Curse, then I want to be targeting your Defense 6, whatever. So I'll leave those sort of things that have got a particular job to my last deployments. But
All right. Well, we'll probably end it there, Traish. Once again, a massive thank you again. This is obviously the second time we've recorded this. So I do appreciate your time coming in, helping out, talking about very similar things that we've talked about before. And obviously yourself, Hugh, thanks for coming in and having a bit of a chat with us.
No worries.
Do appreciate everyone. Obviously, we've got pages and pages of notes of how to improve our game, Traish. So a massive thank you again. Last words from you, Benson?
Thanks for coming on again, and thanks for sticking with us for another hour and a bit, chatting about the same thing that you've done before.
well, look, I'm passionate about it, so.
Yeah, it was really interesting meeting you properly, Trashy, and it was really nice hearing you talk all your words of wisdom. And I'm very pleased that all four of us, humbly, I'd like to suggest all four of us have room to improve when it comes to Ratkin.
Definitely. I'll wait till I have my first game. But the mechanics are the same, whether it's Ratkin or anything else. They've got a lot of good. Obviously, that's what you use, Ratkin.
Yes, yep, they're my preferred poison.
Obviously, that's what he is.
Yeah. Well, we'll get a game, and then after it, I'll
Tell me what I did wrong.
Yeah.
I'll go through what I think about it. But they're a very good list. Very good.
Awesome.
No, too easy. All right, guys, we'll sign off here. Thanks, Traish. World number 1.
Thanks, mate.
So kind of. So a massive thank you again, and thank you to our listeners. Good night.
See you, fans.
See you later.
See you.
Yeah, direct misfire, blowing up the game. Talking many war games is our aim. Rule books to advice, we cover it all. With the best tactics, we never fall. Bend some spoon and sell liquor in the mix. Math hammer doesn't work, it's a trick. Follow along, stay up to date. Comment, like, subscribe today. Come check us out on Facebook and Twitter at Direct Misfire. If you want to shoot us an email, directmisfire@gmail.com.
We really do just talk crap.